fourth episode and segment of the documentary and series that I'm doing that's called That Dude Called Dad. So welcome back. If you're watching this, you've already found me on Facts TV, and I thank you for joining and viewing me on my very own channel called the Encouragement is Key channel. So welcome back, and thank you for your time. Let's see. So we've covered a number of things, a number of topics. We talked about the fact that it's important for men to be men of substance. We talked about the fact that men should understand how important communication, fathers should understand how important communication is. We talked about the fact that it's important for men, to be themselves, and to show themselves human. And then on the tail end of that, I shared a very heartfelt piece that lets men know that, hey, though we might see ourselves and consider ourselves superheroes in many respects, and though the people around us may see us that way, it's okay when we hurt. And so to be able to understand what was shared on these different topics, please just continue to watch this particular program, the Encouragement is Key channel, and information concerning actually the segments on each of those three topics will be coming around to you in just a bit. What I have is I've uploaded about almost 4 hours of programming now with this segment and some things that I'm doing with Poetry TV and a few other pieces. I should be topping out at around 5 hours of programming here very shortly, and I'm proud of that. We've got 24 hours of programming that is going to be ultimately uploaded, but we'll be right about at the 5 mark. So, and everything plays in a loop. So if you are tuning in to my channel at any point in time during the course of the day, just continue to watch, because inevitably, whatever it is that you want to see, if at the time that you tune in it's not playing, just continue to watch and it will loop right back around. Okay? So just a few logistical pieces that I wanted to kind of share and kind of get out of the way. All right? So today I want to tell you about a few things. We're talking about the experiences that I've had with my father, James William Falcon, a phenomenal man. And then I'll start sharing some pieces too. I'll probably do another segment, maybe the next segment, segment number 5 or 6. I'll share with you some information concerning my brother, Michael, who is just an extraordinary man. I'm so thankful to have him, especially in the wake of our father's passing. So I'll tell you about him, and I'll share a segment that I call The Legend of Big Bro, and you'll love to be able to hear and benefit from that. So today, in this particular segment, I want to talk to you about the topic, and very, very important topic to me, and it is making sure as fathers, as men, that we answer the questions, or I guess better said, that we address the questions that are asked, addressing the questions that are asked of us and presented to us as fathers by our children. Very important. Address the questions that are asked. Now, where's this coming from? Well, as a father and a grandfather, the thing that I think is really important, it's a thing I think that we have to keep in perspective. Number one, it is an incredible honor and a privilege when our children and grandchildren come to us with a question, because that means that we have raised them, we are raising them, current tense, present tense, to have a confidence and a comfortability with us to present their questions and their concerns. Number one. Number two, we all learn through the process of asking questions, and I think it's important. And you have to understand, children in particular learn that way, by asking questions. Number three, I realize, being completely honest and human, that it is an incredibly daunting task to be available to answer or address the questions that our children ask. At different stages in the lives of children, they ask many, many questions. I'm looking at my grandchildren. They're all at ages and stages where their mind is really starting to flow. And you take a child that's in, primary grades, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth. That child is asking a number of questions. You take a child who is in a relationship, a child who is married. You take a child who is a parent themselves. And I have children in all of those respects. They're going to ask a number of questions. And I think it's important as fathers that we be available to address the questions. Now, I'm not trying to be coy with my word choice. The reason I'm using the word address as opposed to answer is because I don't want to have anybody feel like you have to know it all. Or let me just provide myself an out. I don't want to have the burden of thinking that I need to be Mr. Answer Guy. It's not the case, because if we are positioned correctly and in a healthy way, we are still learning ourselves. Okay? At 45 years old, I can tell you I am still learning myself. I'm still a student of this thing called life. I'm still a student of this thing called what it means to be a father and grandfather. I will always be. There is no dock that my boat arrives at where I get off and celebrate and say, hey, I made it and I'm done learning. It's not the case. It will never be the case with this man. Maybe it's the case for you, but it'll never be the case for me. And so I'm saying address because sometimes we might have to say, hey, I don't know, baby girl. I don't know, son. Let me research that. Let me look that up. Let's go to the internet together. Let's crack open a book and find and discover the answer ourselves. So it really should not be a burden in that respect. And don't feel like you are any less than an adult or a parent if you don't have a ready answer for your child concerning any question that they bring up. So I use the word address because what's important is this. What's important is that you give your children the attention necessary in those exchanges. And I'm saying attention over answer because children need to know, people in general, adults, we need to know that somebody is there listening and that somebody is paying attention to our concerns, our questions, our struggles, our triumphs, our trials. That's very important, especially in a parent-child relationship. Pity the parent that is so annoyed and frustrated with a curious child, that they make the child feel bad about presenting a question. Now, let me pause for a second. I've been there in respect of sometimes you have a long day. Sometimes you have work to do. Sometimes you just want to unplug and unwind and watch a television program or surf the internet or do whatever it is you do without having to be the question recipient person, right? I get it. I'm with you. And that is part of what it means to be human. No problem, no issues, nothing diminishes you for feeling that way, because that is quite natural. But I think the challenge is always realizing that, hey, this little person has some concerns and I need to avail myself to them during these critical times and moments, because if they don't get the attention, again, I'm using now attention over the word answers, if they don't get the attention from you that they need, they will seek that attention elsewhere. And you don't want to have a child looking for and going to unhealthy sources and places and situations trying to get answers that you and I could very well provide, or looking for the attention, trying to get the attention, craving the attention that you or I could very well provide. So let's capitalize on those opportunities. And again, as a father, grandfather, and godfather, I'm there with you. I mean, we are, in this thing together, you and I want to really emphasize that point and drive that home. This is a together thing, you and I, me and you. And I'm hoping that this information that I can share will be and serve as an encouragement for you as a man, from a man to men watching, or from a parent to parents watching. Obviously, the context of this whole documentary is centered around fathers, and then specifically, it's talking about the value and the influence that African American fathers, three in particular, my dad, my brother, and I, have had and will continue to have on our respective sets of children. So be encouraged with all of these aspects and nuances of what it means to be a parent, because they are not easy at all. This is not an easy job and responsibility, but by the grace of God, we do what's necessary to be a source, a resource, and a support for and to the next generation. Okay? All right. Now, getting back on track. One of the things that comes to mind as I kind of write and think through these scenarios and what it is I want to bring to the table in these little snippets. One of the things that is a very fond memory for me is here in Baltimore, as my dad and I would ride the MTA. We'd ride the bus back and forth, and it was a really cool situation. My dad used to work not very far from where I went to elementary school, kindergarten, 8th grade. And so we would ride the bus together in the morning because he would have to go the same way as I did. And then just throughout the course of the week, at other times, apart from needing to go to school on the weekends, you typically found or could find my dad and I riding the bus. And one of the really, really fond memories I have is that I would ask my dad tons of questions. I don't know if you could tell or not, but I'm a talker. I know it's difficult. Never mind, forget it. Anyway, so I was a talker, been a talker. More than a talker, though, I've been a person that's asked tons of questions, and thankfully I had a mother and a father that tolerated the hundreds of thousands of questions that I've asked over the years and am still asking. And so I would ask my dad a number of things, and we would strike up these conversations, and it was always conversation. I don't remember very many times where there was not some kind of an exchange taking place. We were always in the midst of a conversation. It would be a conversation that would be sparked by a question. I remember one time we were on the bus and I saw one of those big parking signs and it had the letter P. And I said, "Hey, Dad, what does P mean?" And I remember my dad saying, "Well, son, you see, it's like," and he went on down the line, and I was like, okay, not that P, because he tried to tell me about, the whole excretion process. I was like, no, the big blue letter apart outside that building. Oh, and he was like, oh, no, that's P for parking. That's a sign for parking. So it's just those kind of exchanges. But what was really cool, and I didn't realize it at the time, is that there were people watching. There were always people watching. There were people listening. And you figure at 5, 6, 7, and however old you are when you get up to 7th and 8th grade and 13, 14 years old, people are listening and watching these exchanges that I was having with my dad. And my dad was always so very patient to answer those questions. It seemed like he was very masterful in giving me his full attention. And I was always very appreciative of that. I know for a fact that my mother and my father's attention to me during these times when I asked tons of questions is what's giving me the confidence to be able to speak and stand in front of people. Not that I'm anybody great, but they gave me the confidence to be able to do and function in the circles that I am required to function in. And I'm very, very appreciative and thankful for that. My parents And that's something that we can give our kids, is that confidence and listening and being attentive. So the years went by. My dad passed away. As I've shared on the other segments of this, the first three, my dad died when I was 19. And I remember I'm about, I think I was maybe about 19, maybe 20 at the time. And I remember having to get on the bus, and I was on the bus one time, and I remember this woman said to me, she was an older lady, she said to me, "I know you." And I was like, "Hi, ma'am, how are you?" I'm trying to be polite, and I was a little nervous because I didn't know where this conversation was going. But she said, "I remember you. You're the little boy that used to get on the bus with his dad all the time. How's your dad doing?" And I said, "Well, ma'am, unfortunately, my father passed away." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I know you miss him," she said, "because I remember y'all talking all the time." She said, "I remember you would ask him questions, and he was always so very, patient with you to answer those questions and to address whatever your concerns were." And needless to say, in that exchange, of course, my eyes welled up with tears. It was a very touching moment. But what was amazing was the exchanges that my dad and I would have. Not only was he attentive to me, and not only was that a display, a phenomenal display, dad to son, but that was an incredible display to the people around. I mean, he was talking to me and, talking about my dad, talking to me and to the people who were listening. And I think it was really important for me to have that exchange with that older woman later on in life, because it taught me that our influence as parents goes so much further than the two little ears that we originally intended the message to impact. And when you think about that, that's very powerful. So thankfully, again, my dad was at an age where he was quite settled, and he was mature, and being in his 50s at this particular point, and he understood that. He understood that, and he realized how important it is to be a resource. So, I remember at one point in time, I often tell this story, and again, to me, it's a very heartfelt story, and that's what these segments really are. I mean, I'm addressing the issue about the impact of phenomenal African American fathers, but these things, these segments really are a very healthy outlet for me to be able to share some of my memories and experiences with my dad. And I remember there was one time in particular when I was, I guess, about 8 or 9, and I used to draw. I used to do a lot of drawing, and I've taken a number of art classes over the years, and I was drawing one time. And I had just gotten so frustrated because I love to draw comics and superheroes, and I was trying to draw a hand on one of the characters. And I had gotten the face, which was difficult for me at the time. I had gotten the body, the biceps, the chest, and the legs, and I had gotten everything proportionally right, and I had put it down, and it came time for me to draw a hand. I'll never forget this. And then I got so angry. And I got so angry because I couldn't draw it that I actually had to, I had to vent. And what I did was I ripped the paper up and did a bunch of stuff and was very angry. And then I kind of came to my dad and I said, "Dad, I don't know what to do. Show me what to do." And you know what he said to me? This is what my dad said to me. He said, "Son, have a seat." He said, "Let me see your paper." And he looked at the paper. And he said, "Son," he said, "the reason why you can't draw a hand is because you haven't seen enough of them." He said, "When you get older, you will have seen enough hands, and then you'll be comfortable with drawing them." And I thought to myself then, wow, that was deep. And over the years, from that message given to me at 8, 9, 10, whatever it was, up now to 45, that message has exponential meaning because I understand even more clearly, now exactly what that means. To do anything, there has to be a familiarity, there has to be an understanding of the subject matter, and the best way to get an understanding is through investigation and asking questions. And when it comes to art and different things, there has to be a study and so forth. Here's my point. My dad was there. My dad was attentive. and my dad addressed my questions. Men, do yourselves a favor. Be attentive enough to your children to address their questions. It's great, too, if you can provide an answer, but address their questions. Address them. What I'm saying by that is giving your children the attention and the time they need to help them through whatever it is they're going through, whether it's a natural process of learning, a natural process of encountering and overcoming obstacles. Those are monumental moments in a child's life. Don't miss those opportunities. Stay engaged, stay with your children, and be a person, a father that cares. Thank you so much for joining me for this segment of That Dude Called Dad. I'm going to be running at least several more of these segments, and I'm always so very appreciative. Just want to make a note, as of today, we have received close to 2,300 page views. Today happens to be Monday morning, and just this past Thursday we were at 300 page views. My channel now has almost 2,300 page views, so there has been a 5, 6, 7-fold increase in the number of views. So thankfully people are finding this information helpful, and I'm hoping that they're finding it encouraging. Do me a favor and share the link. Invite people to join us. This is great information. It's always good for me to remind myself of the lessons that my father taught me, and I hope it's equally as enjoyable and equally as encouraging for you as well. James W. Falcon here for the Encouragement is Key channel, and we'll look forward to you joining us the next time around. And don't forget, whatever you do, get, be, and stay encouraged in all that you do. Thank you so much. Take care.